The latest chapter has unfolded in the never-ending Vince McMahon WWE saga. Just when we thought this year was going to end, this happens. A new article from the Wall Street Journal has been released the day that Vice TV is going to premiere their 2-hour documentary film on Vince McMahon.
The nine lives
of Vince McMahon. Has he used them all up yet?
I mean, we'll see what comes of this, but I think this is very timely as a release by the Wall Street Journal here.
It's an interesting release date because the Vice TV documentary was originally meant to be transmitted last month, but was preempted by an episode of AEW Dynamite that was moved to Tuesday. They didn't want to go up against Dynamite. So if there was some coordination with the Wall Street Journal when to release these things, I don't know. Maybe just this is just caught up at the same time. But the headlines here are Vince McMahon is being sued by some of the women who he initially paid to cover up the sexual assault and misconduct allegations. And he wants back in to WWE. Yeah. I'm Ollie Davis. This is Luke Owen, DAD. Welcome to WrestleTalk. If you haven't already, please click the subscribe button. Leave a comment down below with your thoughts on this unfolding story. But yes, you've read the full Wall Street Journal report.
I'll open it up with kind of like just to give you an overview of what this news story was originally about. The Wall Street Journal article was about, and then we'll kind of dive into some of the other bits because there's a really interesting bit that's sort of not buried within that we'll get into in a little bit. But it opens with Vince McMahon, the majority owner and former chief executive of World Wrestling Entertainment, is facing legal demands from two women who allege that he sexually assaulted them, according to internal documents and people familiar with the legal negotiations. In a November 3rd demanded letter to Mr. McMahon's representative, a lawyer for former wrestling referee Rita Chatterton asked for $11.75 million in damages after she publicly accused Mr. McMahon 3 decades ago of raping her in a limousine. Mr. McMahon has long denied the allegations. The demand letter was reviewed by the Wall Street Journal. In a separate November email to Mr. McMahon's attorneys, a lawyer for a former spa manager said that Mr. McMahon assaulted his client in 2011 at a California resort, an incident previously unreported in the media. The private communications between lawyers for the women and Mr. McMahon's longtime attorney, Jerry McDivitt, come as WWE tries to move past Mr. McMahon's 40-year tenure as the company's leader into a new era.
It was never going to be as easy as Vince McMahon has done. Like, you push him out of the company, which is what happened. It didn't sound like he went willingly. You push him out of the company. You put a new coat of paint on it. It sounds like backstage, the atmosphere has been totally transformed under Triple H, and that's a great thing. Mm-hmm. But that does not let WWE off the hook for all the stuff that it did under Vince McMahon. So it was $12 million of hush money, let's say, that Vince McMahon paid out to various people who are alleging stuff against him to make them be quiet. It sounds like any of those started to do these lawsuits, or these are separate?
It feels like these ones are separate to those ones.
I would imagine if you have had a lawsuit, if you have had the hush money, you could not then do a lawsuit.
And I think with the Rita Chatterton one, for example, they were having lawsuits back and forth during the 90s because she filed a suit against them, and then Vince McMahon counter-sued as well, as he claimed it was a false claim against him, and they went back and forth.
As he still does
in the early 90s. So I don't think she would have been part of the hush money agreements. So I don't know about the Spa Hotel one either. But if she's trying to sue, then I can't imagine she is.
Of course, we are a wrestling channel, so this is very, very serious stuff that is better left to elsewhere. So go and read up on that elsewhere. We're going to talk more about how this affects WWE as a company that presents wrestling.
Absolutely, yeah. So just for the sake of clarity and stuff, just to read out, spokesman for WWE and the company's independent board directors declined to comment. Mr. McMahon declined to comment. Mr. McDivitt didn't respond to requests for comment. WWE has declined to discuss the allegations against Mr. McMahon. The company previously said it was cooperating with the board inquiry and taking the claims seriously. Then wasn't it the Triple H recently, or was it Stephanie said that they had completed the investigation? Was that on the investors call recently?
We've heard that it's been nearing completion for months.
Yeah.
It's been going on since April, I believe, was when it first started to go behind the scenes, and then it was obviously leaked to the Wall Street Journal. And within a month, really, it forced Vince out of the company.
Well, it was an ever-changing thing because, like, he stepped down from being the CEO, and Stephanie became interim CEO, but he was still head of creative. And then it was only like a couple of weeks later that all changed again, and he completely stepped back, retired from the sport, and Stephanie and Nick Khan became co-CEOs, and Triple H took over as head of creative.
And it's been such a successful on-screen revival that people feel like the momentum is now with WWE over AEW.
100%.
That is shocking compared to where we are at the start of this year. But yes, when I said that it was never going to be easy for WWE to move on from all of these allegations coming out, it wasn't just as simple as removing McMahon from the top. These things were going to haunt them for a while. It's also because McMahon isn't going to go quietly in the night. I am stunned that you just haven't heard anything from him for... What's it been? Like 5-6 months?
Yeah, it's been a while, actually, hasn't it? Longer than you think.
The most I've seen of him is on Reddit. Someone posted a photo of him having dinner at a restaurant in New York, and it was weird seeing him in, like, real life.
Well, apparently he's been talking to people. So here's another piece from the Wall Street Journal article. And for me, this is outside of, the very serious allegations being made against him. From a sort of like wrestling YouTube channel perspective, this for me might be the most interesting part of this, which is Mr. McMahon has told people he refuses to pay settlements to Mrs. Chatterton and the former Spa manager. People familiar with his comments have said. WWE's auditor has advised the company that resolutions of the claims, even if confidential, would possibly have to be disclosed by the company publicly, said a person familiar with the matter. They didn't respond for comment. The 77-year-old Mr. McMahon has also told people that he intends to make a comeback at WWE. According to the people familiar with his comments, he has said that he received bad advice from people close to him to step down, and he now believes the allegations and investigations would have blown over had he stayed.
No. Good advice. It was good advice to remove yourself completely, Vince.
But in Vince's mindset, according to the Wall Street Journal, had he stayed, all of the 24-hour news cycle, this would have all blown over. People would have moved past it. There would have been brawl-outs, and everyone would have put more focus onto that. And Vince would have stayed in charge, not only of the company, but also of creative. Bearing in mind that Triple H has undone everything that Vince laid out and is now in the mindset of, well, I'm just going to go back. I'm going to take control of the company again. And as I said at the top of this, he is still the majority shareholder of WWE. So I think he's able to just make these decisions and come back. But lastly, from Sean Ross Sapp, when he was tweeting about this story, said, numerous WWE higher-ups that I've spoken to in recent months have indicated to us they want nothing to do with Vince McMahon returning and are happy with the direction. I haven't heard one person that are itching for a Vince return.
Yeah, this doesn't seem like a CM Punk story where there's two potential sides and a few people.
There's Vince McMahon and everyone else.
This is, when these allegations first came out, Vince McMahon went on SmackDown to with the idea of, originally I bet he went out there to cut a promo, turn it into a storyline, but someone obviously talked him out of that, and he just went out and went, we're all in this together.
Yeah, he did it on Raw as well. He did it like every show. He was coming out just being like, hey guys, I'm still here. You can't get me.
And it is just a defiant stand, a petulantly defiant stand, showing that this means nothing to him. He's going to win in the end, which to some of these accusing people, I imagine is awfully traumatic. But anyway, he's seen how he behaved back then, and how he was coming out and saying, no, it's all going to blow over. I'm Mr. McMahon, the character. Nothing can affect me. Then he just goes. I always did find that quite strange that there weren't more statements. There weren't people like coming out in Camp McMahon.
Yeah.
But now I think we're getting the after effects of that, which is him going, no, I'm totally in the right here, like the egomaniac narcissist that he is.
I remember joking with you when Vince McMahon made that tweet announcement that he was retiring just before SmackDown. You know, that SmackDown where Brock Lesnar walked out on the company and stuff.
Yeah.
Like, we remember that madness from a few months back, or way back in the day. I said to my wife, I didn't do a live stream reaction for it on the WrestleTalk podcast because I just said to my wife, I was like, I don't believe it.
Yeah,
I don't buy that he's gone. And it literally took me a few days, like legit a few days, possibly even a week to be like, oh no, he's actually really gone. But you're right, like there was always that like nagging sense within us as wrestling fans that, is he ever truly gone from WWE? And I think in his mind, going by this Wall Street Journal article, he's not gone and he is itching to return.
If you watch Succession, which is it's meant to parallel the Murdoch family and the media empire, but dear God, season 3 or 4, I can't remember which, is a play-by-play of what happened to Vince and Stephanie and all this stuff. So I always, in that series, Logan Roy, the patriarch, still controls everything, even though he's stepped down. So I look at this situation back in June, in the back of my head, yeah, he's probably not doing the creative, but he is having calls, he's organizing things. I bet he's still very much involved. This, to me, doesn't dispel that. Like, he still could very much be, but I think this is him going, no, I want to get back in the production side of things, the creative side of things.
He's watching his son-in-law, his doofus son-in-law, to borrow a phrase from someone else, tear apart everything that he'd done, bring back all of those people that he'd fired, get rid of titles that he'd created, drop storylines that he'd started. And he's now looking at being like, do you know what? If I'd have stayed, none of this would have happened anyway. So it's better off with me in charge. He's Vince McMahon. Of course the company's better off with him in charge. My question to you, though, is, do you think he comes back? Do you think when we get into 2023, the story is going to be Vince McMahon is back and is in charge of creative again?
I don't. If I had to put a bet on right now, I would say he won't come back, purely because if reports that he's coming back get out a little bit more, I think that will affect the share price. I think if that will make it go down, because under Triple H it's been remarkably okay. And one of the big myths of WWE over the last 30 years was that if you get rid of Vince McMahon, you get rid of all that success, for better or worse, that comes with him. And now that happened. And everything actually was not just okay, it was better.
But what happens if these stories come out and the prices go up? Like under the rumors and reports that Vince might come back, stock prices start to rise again.
I mean, but I don't think that will happen.
Yeah. We are wildly speculating on this.
So I don't think he will come back. I think it sounds like the board have a lot of sway in these decisions. This is like reaching the limits of what I know about how companies function. I
think many people outside of a handful of people really know how the board of directors of WWE really operates and what goes on in there. Much like Succession, that boardroom scene when they're trying to do the vote of no confidence in him. It's like, I hope you're smelling your armpit, boy.
Yeah.
That sort of thing. Like, we don't know if it's going to be like that type of situation. But we're only like 6 months out from him stepping down. And we're already starting to get stories that he is telling people that is the direct quote. He intends to make a comeback to WWE.
Yeah. But do you think he'll come back?
I think he will do everything he can to come back. Whether he does or not is a different matter. But Vince McMahon will do everything within his power. He will be pulling every string. He'll be making every phone call he can to get back into that position of power and run the show again.
You know, when you watch a trilogy of films and all the good guys think they defeated the bad guy at the end of the first one and they're like, oh, that was tough, but we did it. And then, you have the second movie, and at the end of the second movie, oh crap, they're back. They're so much stronger than before, and now they're a real challenge going into the third movie. That's what this is. I've always thought it was weird that Vince went relatively easy.
Yeah.
So I think the next couple of months, particularly hitting Mania season, particularly with this Vice TV documentary going live, I think it could be hugely embarrassing and damaging for the company to have this Livewire also out there, not behaving in the company's best interests. He's confusing his best interests with WWE's.
And just when you thought this year was done for wild stories, we've got a brand new one, which might be Vince McMahon wants to return and take back control.
Surprise spot at the Rumble?
Oh,
Number 30?
If only he's going to hit a Rumble entrant.
He's the one to dethrone Reigns.
Who's more surprising, him or Shane?
Or bring them both back. Face the Usos.
They're the people to dethrone the Usos.
Anyway, let us know what you think. Do you think Vince McMahon really is going to come back to WWE? Let us know in the comments down below. And press subscribe. Enable notifications to always on as well. But for now, I've been Ollie Davis. This has been Luke Owen. Go and watch our story about Matt Riddle that went up earlier today as well. Jam that jam.